And welcome in D2L Season 4 action. A little bit delayed, as you can see. The draft already moving ahead here in game number 1 of our first series of the day. Rattlesnake taking on Tongfu. Much apologies. We had a little bit of a tech issue. Actually, it was 2 times tech issues. And as we can see, we got to get the overlay good. Yeah, it's all right. Second day of broadcasting. Still a little bit of hiccups to work out. Doesn't matter, though. Just happy to have you on board and happy to have Merlini on board for the analysis and commentary here for our second day. And he'll be on board for the rest of the broadcast as well. But I'm going to shut my mouth and stop at the intro. Break down the lineups, Merlini. I'm sure that's what everyone wants to hear.
Rattlesnake is going with a Team Melee lineup, looking a 4th pick Spectre. A little bit unusual. Spectre was fairly popular during the month of July, but we haven't really seen too much since the Reality and Haunt was buffed. But after recent buff and no changes in the subsequent patch, everyone's just like, whatever. There are better solutions. Spectre is the only unusual hero about this draft. We've seen Elder Titan, we've seen Timbersaw, we've seen everyone on Tongfu's lineup for quite some time. So I'll just talk a little bit more about Spectre. One of the problems with this hero is that he can only be in a defensive triple lane for the most part. I think he can be in like a aggressive 3-on-1 lane, but aggressive 3-on-3, that hero has absolutely no place there. It's a very defensive hero. It definitely needs items and farm. It's not like a lifestealer or a gyrocopter that you can actually pick up some kills early. So I'll be looking at a skill build too. Usually we see 1 point in dispersion for maximum value. You get 10% for 1 point as opposed to 4% for other points. If he wants to get a lot of kills, he can go Desolate. If he's trying to escape, you can also max Spectral Dagger to send the dispersion if you so desire.
Well, we can see Tongfu just mass disconnected. One of the reasons we were actually a little late even getting the draft started at all was they were having some connection issues. Then unfortunately had a malfunction on the Twitch side, actually not a malfunction, probably poor planning on our side, and we had to get that taken care of. Nonetheless, we see Crystal Maiden round out that last 5 for Rattlesnake, the Beastmaster, the 5th pick for Tongfu. And talking about tri-lanes, you brought that up and how the heroes all fit into that. I actually wouldn't hate seeing that out of Tongfu here. They've got a Lifestealer, a Visage, and a Rubik. There's a lot of offensive potential in that kind of a situation, especially against the Nyx Assassin. As good as a Nyx can be, really early on, levels 1, 2, so on and so forth, he can be a little easy to run over, even if he gets an early point in a carapace, but still he's going to want the stun from Impale, so on and so forth. And maybe they try to free up some solo safe lane farm for that Weaver with the Visage, Lifestealer, and Rubik just wreaking havoc in the face of the farming Spectre. Spectre, of course, her lane presence not that solid early on, even with a nice supporting cast. Crystal Maiden does help shore that up a little bit. Great level 1 through 5 hero, but I feel like Tongfu's got a lot of options, and really putting the pressure on would free up that mid lane a bit for the Beastmaster as well. A hero with no inherent escape mechanism until he hits level 6. Very easy mid to gank if you don't keep pressure on, and of course that's kind of the upside, the big upside to running an offensive tri-lane is you tend to keep the supports of the enemy tri-lane very occupied, keep them from roaming and causing problems elsewhere.
Yeah, it looks like we are having some connection issues on the side of Tongfu. I think all 5 of them dropped now. We see ZS MJ and Sang Shun disconnected, and their other who was their last hero? Weaver on Zoe. Yep. So I'm not exactly sure what their lanes are going to be, but most likely triple lane with the Lifestealer, and then solo mid Beastmaster with an off lane or solo safe lane Weaver. But I think it's going to be a solo safe lane Weaver because they want to put the pressure on Spectre. I'm glad that Rattlesnake drafted a very early game supports with Crystal Maiden and Nyx Assassin. Nyx Assassin with a mana burn can pretty much shut down Visage in lane, and all they need to do is just survive until level 6. They don't have to creep pull. If they can, it's a bonus, but I don't expect them to be able to control the pull, even if they are able to do so with the help of dewarding and such. I'm just scared for Luo. Is Luo going to be able to farm his phase drums and eventually Manta and or Radiance if he wants to go that route?
Oh, yeah, if they do manage to get Luo off to a decent start, I mean, one of the nice things about a Spectre, and it seems like Tongfu just continuing to have issues, so obviously out of our control. We do apologize for that, though, but whenever you see a Spectre, and you'll oftentimes see Na'Vi do this. Na'Vi loves to put together a lineup like we see out of Rattlesnake. They've got that roaming potential in the Nyx Assassin to cause problems. Again, the early level kill potential that a Crystal Maiden gives you. And, of course, the Timbersaw, if he gets off to a nice start, he's going to be active on the map. You combine that with the global presence of Haunt coming out from Spectre. She can show up and really have that global presence to just turn any fight into a +1 with her favor if she maxes Spectral Daggers. So I feel like Rattlesnake really has a lot of offensive potential, but they're going to have to survive through this early laning phase, as you had pointed out. If they can do so, though, Tongfu, even though they do have a very well-rounded lineup, a lot of different sources of damage. They have the nice single-target lockdown of the Beastmaster, the physical DPS of the Lifestealer and the Weaver, but the magic damage as well coming out from Visage with Soul Assumption combined with Shikuchi. They're very well-rounded, but it seems like a lineup that, outside of the Lifestealer, can feel a little bit thin.
I agree with you. I think that Rattlesnake's a little bit more thin, though.
Yeah.
Just because if Nixus doesn't get shut down early and Crystal Maiden also can't get levels in the triple lane, I think she's just going to feed. Crystal Maiden versus a Lifestealer, not a very good matchup. Crystal and Nixus Assassin versus a Lifestealer, also a very bad matchup. So I think that those supports are very liable to feed if they don't get a good start. So it's all about the early laning phase if Rattlesnake can control their early game. Rattlesnake are our underdogs for today's match, 20% versus Tongfu, 80%. So we're looking at 4-1 underdogs. And their lineup is a little bit different. We see something unusual again in the fact that they pick a lot of pure damage with Elder Titan. Generally, you want to just pick straight physical damage or minus armor or just magical damage when you have an Elder Titan on your team to make the most use out of his natural order. But the base resist reduction doesn't actually help out the majority of Timbersaw's damage nor Spectre's damage. Spectre has two sources of pure damage with her Desolate and Dispersion, and Icy on the Timbersaw has two sources of pure damage too, with Timber Chain and his Chakram. So a little bit unusual draft from that.
Those who are tuned in via Dota TV, just want to go ahead and apologize. Sometimes the audio quality, and this isn't in response to anything, it's just keeping up with the feedback from yesterday. And obviously, whenever we're bouncing our voices out to Beijing and back, there's going to be some audio degradation. So those who are listening via in-game ticket, very sorry. Obviously, there's very little we can actually do about that. We know there are some speed-up, slow-down issues. There is some audio quality issues that go up and down, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So do want to thank you so very much for supporting us with the in-game ticket. Do want to apologize for any inconvenience that arises from simple ping issues, but just know that we have quite literally done everything we can to try and make that issue less present. And of course, working with Valve to try and find solutions in a practical manner as well as a technical manner. So Tongfu does have 4 out of 5 loaded in, still missing their Rubiks. And really hoping we're going to be able to get underway. Just a reminder for those who are just kind of playing catch-up with the news of the D2L, we will be having another triple header here today, and then we'll be off for the rest of the week. Hopefully we're going to be putting together some ancillary content to fill in those weekday broadcasts looking ahead. But resuming next Sunday, that'll be our next triple header broadcast here in the Eastern Division. Then Monday, another triple header. And of course, I'm not going to get into the hows and the whys. We had to shift our schedule due to some sponsor requests coming out of China. And if you want to read about that, you certainly can. You can find the Reddit thread and the news reported and a few other places. But do want to thank you for being a part of the broadcast, especially all of our European brothers and sisters who I know are staying up very, very late to try and view these matches. The North American Dota players this time, Merlini, they're getting their first taste of some primetime Dota broadcasting that we've seen in quite a while, actually.
Yeah, it's good that a tournament's actually during like normal people's time in the West Coast. West Coast generally gets shafted. You have to wake up like super early if you want to watch the general European schedule. But this one, it runs a little bit late, but that's good for the Europeans too. So a little bit of both worlds. And they get to spectate some Asian Dota for once. Typically that happens in the middle of the night. And we don't really have a chance to cast Tongfu nor Rattlesnake that often.
Right, exactly. Once again, keep in mind that we do have 2 divisions. Our Eastern Division will be single round robin, as will the West. You can find all of your information about that at d2l.gg. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, HyperX, Monster Energy, Razor, and Astro, of course. And because of their support and the support of all of you guys over the last 3 seasons, this season 4 we'll be having our grand finals in Las Vegas, Nevada, Caesars Palace during CES. Merlini and I will be there, so make your plans, come out and say hello, and it will be free admission, by the way. It's going to be first come, first serve once you get there, but no charge whatsoever to come in. It's going to be wide open with a lot of Kingston people around to make sure you're nice and comfortable and that you find out about the world's premier RAM manufacturer. But looks like we're still missing one Rubik. Our admin, I'm sure, at some point is going to have to step in. We do have rules in place. One big change that we actually do have this season is that there will be no rescheduling, and obviously that's been a problem. You know, the D2L, we prided ourselves for a very long time at being the flexible league and being willing to work with teams, and we still do very much take pride in that. But when it comes down to it, we've just reached a point now, especially after last season, where our schedule got pushed out literally more than a month deeper than it should have been. And we just kind of had to lock all the teams in. And there are still going to be some hiccups here and there with our latest schedule shift due to the sponsor requests coming out of China. But for the most part, we do want to accommodate, but we do plan to abide by the rules. And there is, of course, a time limit involved in how long a team has before they will start to face repercussions, be it technical or be it responsibility based. So really hope we get to see our Rubik player join back in, Merlini. I'm really looking forward to this match. I want to see the new look Rattlesnake.
And speaking of the Rubik player, ZSMJ he got famous because of his Divine Rapier Medusa. And him on a support role is something that's a little bit unusual. Mm-hmm. It's, I think, somewhat similar to like Lonem. Lonem was a solo mid player for Rattlesnake, and then he is now one of the support players on DK. So I think that he transitioned very well. I'm not completely confident. I'm not as confident in ZSMJ's or ZSMJ's abilities to shift to that Rubik. So I'll be keeping an eye out on him. Sansheng, I think a lot of people have like ragged on him in the past for being one of the slightly subpar support players. So I'll be seeing how they match up. If you look at yesterday's matchup with MMY and Lonem, it was just incredible how well those two supports played.
Oh yeah.
And I think these two supports really are going to be like the core of. They really need to put out a lot of pressure on Luo in the start. They have a 2 range lane, perhaps 3 if they want to put Zoe in the lane, versus a double melee lane with a Nyx Assassin and Luo. So it's going to really be on the pressure's on them to shut down Luo, to keep him from being farmed, and just make him a non-factor throughout the rest of the game.
Looks like Zen SMJ has rejoined us, and I'm glad you brought up his name. That's a hero that maybe a lot of newer Dota players, myself included, really. He's a guy I had to read about to understand why he was considered to be of legendary status. And but a guy that I think we're all going to be keeping our eye on in one way or another. As you said, a bit out of what he's known for playing in his current position, but nonetheless should make for a great game. We're going to go ahead and run through our lineups. As the teams move out, we're going to have Luo playing on our Spectre. We're going to have the Nyx Assassin handled by Johnny. He's actually making his way to mid right now. The Timbersaw will be handled by Icy as he wanders his way up towards the off lane. Elder Titan going to be played by 1-2-1. He's going to be playing the support role in the lane, as will Sag. So as of right now, again, we can see, looks like we're going to have ourselves a very interesting matchup down bottom as we see 5 already moving ahead from Tongfu. And they're going to try to put the pressure on, get some wards down. You already see 1 dropped by Luo to keep an eye on things just around the bushes. XTT, and we will run through their lineups momentarily, but for now, Tongfu making it a little bit too volatile to worry about such minutia. Looks like that will be ending now as they do go ahead and drop down a ward to block the pole camp. That'll be a sentry, so they will have to replace it rather quickly if they want to keep that pole camp blocked. But as expected, looks to be a tri-lane. On the side of Tongfu will be Zhou playing on our Weaver. The Rubik going to be handled by a Zen SMJ. We're going to have San Sheng playing on the Visage. The Beastmaster will be handled in mid by Mu. Don't think that surprises anyone, with XTT farming up our lifesteal.
Oh, they're in position to set up for a gank. So the other very strange thing about this game is, or aside from the Spectre pick, is the choice to put Nyx Assassin mid. And this is something that we haven't seen in a very, very long time. And it really goes to show what their plan is in the mid game. They want to actually keep the pressure up on Tongfu and keep them on their toes rather than soloing the Elder Titan mid, leveling up his Spirit and Natural Order, and just playing passively defending towers. So I think they're actually going for a more aggressive strategy, especially with this Crystal Maiden. Crystal Maiden is a very aggressive support. They could go for a Shadow Demon or a Keeper to Light if they want to do a more passive one. So I think that they're actually maybe aiming to get a lot of kills. With Spectre is generally, hey, let's survive the laning phase. Let's get past the early game hump, and hopefully we can make things happen around the 15 to 20 minute mark. But I think they're trying to make things happen as soon as first nighttime hits at 6 minutes.
Yeah, I think this kind of comes back around to what I was saying in terms of the way you'll see Na'Vi very often play a Spectre like this. And I really love the option of sending the Nyx Assassin mid. It's going to allow him to get a much quicker 6. He's going to be able to use his Vendetta to get around the map and to start creating havoc early on. You have that to go with the early game strength of a Crystal Maiden and that global presence of especially, again, if our Spectre decides to go ahead and max Spectral Dagger. It is very, very easy to underestimate just how much damage that can output in the early phases of the game whenever she comes in just to finish someone up, get the kill experience, get the kill gold, and get herself a little further ahead. So far, the DD there in the safe lane, not showing that big of a difference, but let's talk about the matchup in mid. Nyx versus Beastmaster. Another reason I like it, it's a melee versus a melee. This is going to allow Johnny not just to get decent experience, but he should be able to get up some pretty quick items as well.
And Mu is actually going for the Inner Beast build as opposed to the early Call of the Wild build with the early Boar. It depends on what you want to do. If you just want to push out your lane and just farm some more levels, I think that Inner Beast is more useful. But if you want to get better room control, having Call of the Wild is certainly more useful for that. And if you expect your hero to get a lot of focus, you can micro your cool bore around. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, but it's just going to be even farm. Both heroes going to be Bottle Crow, and we actually see Beastmaster already with his boots and sash too. So he's doing very well in CS. 11-2 compared to the 5-1 from Nyx. But Mana Burn is not useful at all versus Moot because he has very low intelligence. He only has 22 with 3 branches, so it's going to burn more of Nyx's mana than his mana. So he's going for a 2-0-1 build at the moment, and Moo is just out CSing him in the middle very, very heavily. On the top lane, Icy actually dragged the creeps over here just to give him a little bit of a breather for the first wave. So I think with that, he actually comes out on top on CS, 11-2 versus Zoe's 9-0. Surprisingly, Zoe doesn't have any denies.
So we can see already in the safe lane, the CS definitely going the way of the LS, and that's not really any surprise. Luo currently with 1 point into Dispersion and 1 into Spectral Dagger as well, and the disconnect problems continue. Hopefully this won't take too terribly long for us to get underway. Do want to apologize. We are obviously running a bit behind schedule as they were having these issues earlier on, and we delayed the beginning of the game. Then we had to kind of cut short our early draft phase commentaries. We dealt with an issue on Twitch and all that fun stuff, but nonetheless, 2.5 minutes in, all quiet on the Western Front. We can see the top 2 CS, that's the Beastmaster and the LS, coming out of the side of Tongfu, off to a great start. The Timbersaw's hanging in there, he and Weaver trading roughly even. Then, after that, you can see Rattlesnake so far not getting the best of the early lanes. The Nyx, as you mentioned, being pushed around in mid by that Beastmaster, and 4-0 on Spectre. Not horrendous, but certainly not quite where she wants to be, trying to get farmed up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Moose CS is just incredibly high right now. We're talking about 2.5 minutes in, so 4 waves. The 5th wave just spawned, and there are, 1, 2, 3 creeps alive in mid, so 4 times 4 is 16. I think he's gotten most of the creeps, missing like 2, I believe, this whole entire time. At the same time, Johnny has actually gotten the regen rune, so that should give him a little bit more lane control. But as far as CSing goes, Moo is just doing very, very well.
Yep, saw Johnny grab the regen rune at 2 minutes in, spinning an impale here, just trying to make sure he's able to get a little bit of gold up. Really, it's been a little bit more quiet in this bottom lane than I would have anticipated, but that's due, of course, to Rattlesnake really playing this about as well as they can, just not giving them any openings, allowing 1-2-1 to do what harass he can with his Astral Spirit. And
he's doing a very good job of blocking the spawn, just sitting there, knowing that his Sentry Ward expired right before 3. Sansheng might pay for it with his life, though, but they don't have enough damage. Some people don't actually like the Rubik and the Visage combo, although both of them are very good supports individually. Together, their synergy is not that great in terms of telekinesis doesn't actually do any damage, so it takes quite a while for Soul Assumption to build up charges. So some people don't like them together, and that may be why we're seeing not that much action in this lane. I think it may have been better to put the Weaver down here, just because if you look at Luo, he still has Tango, he still has a salve, and he's sitting very, very close to full HP, so he's not really under that much pressure. He hasn't gotten that much CS, but at least he's not going to die, and this is kind of what you would expect in an early game. Oh,
yep, we can see. Yeah,
that was without Roar.
Yeah, that's what I was watching for as well. Moo, without Roar, manages to get the first blood there in mid, and gonna guess, yeah, his axe is on cooldown. Must have just whittled down the Nyx assassin. I was actually watching top lane much more as we saw Zoe and Icy trading blow for blow, and it looked as if one was going to get the better of the other at some point, but Johnny already back to lane and trying to make up for the fact that he gave first blood. Moo has to waddle his way all the way back. We can see Tongfu getting a little bit more aggressive now in this bottom lane, playing a little bit closer. Same thing with Rattlesnake, willing to hang a little bit more. Really hesitant to leave this top lane too often, though, as really the kill potential on both sides is relatively high. We can see Moo is level 6 now. It looked like he thought about roaring there, or at least trying to harass a bit more, but they're going to continue to just trade blows. Certainly his lane is 1 at this point, though.
That absolutely should not happen in the middle lane. A solo Nyx assassin dying to a solo Beastmaster, absolutely not, especially when Johnny is the one that has gotten the runes. You have Impale if you're in any trouble, especially before level 6. You have your Carapace in case he tries to axe you, and you have Mana Burn if you just really don't want him to Mana Burn you at all, or to axe you at all. So I'm still very surprised at how that happened, and I think with that, like, Moo's just going to have a much more impact on this game. He's already 1 full level ahead of Johnny. He has 28 CS compared to the Nyx assassin, and he's going to get this top. No, he's actually smoked. He's going top. He's looking for a kill on... Wow, Icy just uses Chakram and solo killed Zoe, so I don't think that either of these solo kills should have happened.
Yeah, honestly, he just kind of hang around. Joe just hung way too close to the trees. He got the damage from Whirling Blades, and and then got chakram. There really wasn't a whole lot else to it. He tried to get away, but not much he could do. Make it 1-1. Rattlesnake finds their way onto the board, gets a little bit of payback for Johnny, who ended up dying again to that Beastmaster. But again, taking a look at the CS, 33 for the LS compared to the 10 of the Spectre. And really, this is all you can ask for out of an offensive trial lane. Getting kills is always nice, but just being able to limit the development of a carry like this, already into or coming up on 6 minutes, this is a one lane for Tongfu.
The Crystal Maiden.
And we're going to see XTT go ahead and open wounds on 1-2-1. Here comes San Sheng right behind him. 2 points in the Soul Assumption. He does go ahead and use the Grave Keepers, or the Grave Chill. They do get yet another kill. Luo wants to respawn. We heard a TP come in. XTT has Rage Off cooldown if he wants it. Icy's there to try and make something happen, but it looks like Tongfu's going to be able to withdraw. Mu has rotated over. There's going to be a haste rune now. That's a haste rune, and he is level 6 if they decide to try and give the old okey doke around the side. We're going to see Icy get some good damage off on Song Sheng. Here's Mu, going to pop the haste rune, use the roar. The Axes follow it up. ZSMJ and XTT are there to help clean it up. Timber Chain helps a bit. Chakram does a lot of damage with Whirling Blade, but they do manage to get the kill. Here comes Johnny, though, using the Impale to get 2. They're going to end up killing 2 as well, the Lifestealer and the Rubik. Hung around just a little bit too long, and even though Icy did end up dying, he ended up buying enough time for his team to respond, make it 4-3.
Icy making big plays this game. He drew a lot of takes a lot of pressure off the Spectre on this map. He kills Zoe on top. He forced a smoke out of the Beastmaster, and then he pretty much just killed 3 heroes right there, baiting them into this very defensive position, getting a lot of damage on Lifestealer so that the solo Nyx Assassin could kill him with that Impale. That was a very nice Impale. I didn't think that it was actually going to hit both of them. As far as Crystal Maiden's skill build, if you saw her on bottom, she actually had 1 level Crystal Nova, 1 level of Arcane Aura, and no Frostbite. I think if she had Frostbite, they could have gotten a kill very close to the tower. But all in all, it ended up being a very, very good trade for Rattlesnake. And if they're actually ahead on kills with the Spectre, that must be very troublesome for Tongfu.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're Tongfu, the one thing you can rely on, again, is the fact that you have just eliminated Spectre's farm to this point. But it's come at a cost. A couple of mistakes there. Tongfu got a free kill. They could have backed out, but got a little bit greedy and tried to kill one of the tankier heroes in the early game in that Timbersaw. One of the tankier and more escape-heavy heroes, just because of the slow on Chakram and, of course, Timber Chain. But we can see Johnny trying to make something happen now. He's under cover of Vendetta. It will expire, though, before he can find himself a target.
We actually see 4 heroes get bottle in this game. We see all 4 solo heroes. Zoe actually has it. I think that you can just go Tranquils if you're in a side lane. I think that it's decent on Timbersaw, just because he's very, very mana intensive, and if you don't have reactive armor, or if you're not getting hit, you can't really regen up your HP. But Weaver is just kind of the hero that just sits in lane very often. You don't really need to be bottle crowing. You're not checking runes very often. I think that it would just been a much better investment for him for the armor.
We can see Luo with his skill build is maxing Spectral Daggers, so I think that kind of fits in with what we both suspect. Just based on the way they lane this, they're going to want to get a lot done and incorporate Spectre sooner rather than later, not just farm her as a 40-minute carry, but try to get her involved in kills and fights very early on. She is pretty close to her phase boots now, about 20 gold, so she'll have that extra little bit of mobility, a little bit of extra damage as well. But as of right now, Rattlesnake continues to play.
Oh, we see a smoking. They're going top. And I think they're trying to bait out Icy. If you notice, Icy's position is very, very defensive. He stands back behind the creep wave, even though it's on his side of the river. So I think that they know that they're around the top area. And it looks like Rattlesnake's trying to bait Icy out, but they have to. Tongfu kind of has to know that, because he was just playing super passively up here. If they ever see him past the forest, then they know that something's going on. Johnny with his Vendetta going in from behind.
Here we go, looking for a target. Don't know if he got spotted there. There's the Chakram tearing down the trees. He will follow it up. That's a blown-up Vistage. That's going to prompt the immediate TPN. And we're going to see Rattlesnake pulling back very, very quickly. Looks like that's not going to pull Luo away, though. Luo happy to get some farm because of that, and just the 1 kill. All that Rattlesnake needed to feel like they'd done a good day's work, make it 5-3 now. In mid, we can see ZSMJ has found his level 6. So.
Oh, he's infested.
Here we go. They're going to come out on Luo. And the roar, the axes, a little bit of extra damage. Tongfu gets a lot of payback very, very quickly, and more importantly, gets a payback on the hero they want to bring down the most and keep off the map as long as they can.
I personally don't like the phase boost build on Spectre. I think that he needs a lot of survivability, especially if you're going for the max Spectral Dagger build. He has his poor main shield and he has a magic stick, but he wasn't able to pop anything off just because he got sunlocked and just died in a simple roar. With Strength Treads, you have more HP, and if they focus you down, you get a little bit more dispersion damage so that you're at least doing something useful with your death. Unfortunately, they did not have a ward out here. Not that it would have mattered much because they used the smoke gank. So I think that was a very good gank by Moo, and they're actually much more efficient about their ganking. I think one hero was farming mid while the 4 hero gank was on top. They only got 1 kill on top with 4 heroes, and on bottom they got 1 kill with just 2 heroes. So Tongfu, even though they're behind on kills right now, they're making much better use of their heroes. They're splitting around the map and just being much more efficient. And you can tell that by the gold graph. It's 2,500 in favor of Tongfu with no tower difference.
Johnny under cover of Vendetta once again. Will spin it and immediately stun him out. Spectral Dagger's there. Mana Burn as well as Carapace. He's going to rage and try to get away, taking a lot of damage. This is where Desolate comes into play. Can he catch him one more time? Vendetta's off cooldown right now. Will catch him and will notch the kill. So even though they brought down Luo moments ago, now up at top we're going to see Tongfu pay back the favor, bringing down the Timbersaw with a double damaged Moo there to help lead the way. So both teams punching hard and going blow for blow.
Yeah, IC is playing very well after his first test. He's 3-1-1. His only death came in a solo lane, but after that, he's been moving around the map very effectively, taking a lot of pressure off Spectre. He has to be aggressive. He always has to be looking for kills in the lanes, only farming when his Vendetta is on cooldown. It should be up in another 20 seconds, but he's very farm right now. 1,400 gold to his name. Looking at the net worth graph, let's see if he eclipses Beastmaster. No, he's still... Oh, yep, he is. He's actually 100 ahead of the Beastmaster right now.
And at this point, we see Joe and Zen SMJ trying to get something going at top. This top tower has been relatively untouched. We see a lot of movement out of Rattlesnake back towards bottom. Johnny is wasting no time with this Vendetta. Every time it is up, he's ready to spend it. And XTT a little bit too far forward, likely to eat a stun here. And we're just waiting on it. There it is. The immediate impale. Here comes the Spectral Dagger. And the burst damage coming out from Astral Spirit with all of it. Most likely going to be too much. He will get the infest off, actually, so going to jump back out. The immediate response. Johnny's going to dive him back. They will get the kill with Haunt. But Rattlesnake might end up having to trade Johnny for the solo kill. Joe will go ahead and pursue him out. Has an empty bottle, so nothing he can do but pop Carapace and hope for the best. Actually, will get the stun and spin the impale. Got a couple. Here come the Visage Familiars. Johnny's on the wrong side of the map, dipping between.
Kill him, though.
Yep.
It's completely worth it.
And he will end up dying quite far away. Not a lot of experience to be split there. Tongfu does decide to go ahead.
He might go on Luo right now. He uses Flask, though. This is the time to go before he gets all his HP back. He has 10 stick charges.
Yep. Saw them.
That was very close.
Saw them smoked up, moving down mid lane. In the meantime, Luo's got help. 1-2-1 right behind him. Here comes Icy as well. Icy almost level 11 now. He's sitting at the top of his team's farm chart. 3,700. Net worth, just slightly ahead of both the Nyx Assassin and the Spectre. So they're going to be relying on him even more so now, with the Spectre just having had a little bit more trouble at bottom than I think she would have liked to.
The Timbersaw will actually be the mech bearer for their team instead of the typical Elder Titan, but Elder Titan hasn't really gotten anything. He's just been chilling in the back, just using a Spirit with level 3 Natural Order. He's actually maxing that over the Spirit. Looks like we may see our first actual push of the game come with 4 heroes on top with Tongfu. They have the level 1 Inner Beast. They have the Buckler on the Beastmaster. Looks like they want to take this tower, force the issue. Nyx Assassin does Vendetta. So do they have Sentry Wards, though? Oh, yes, they do. But it's a little bit outside of tower. I think if Moo beats on the tower, he may be very liable to get initiated on.
Here we go. Moo right up front. Gonna try to get some vision for his team. Astral Spirit comes out, and we're gonna see Johnny initiate, catching out Zoe. Chakra to follow it up. There's the roar onto Johnny. Time lapse gets Zoe back into fighting shape. Another good impale stolen by Zen SMJ, and the Crystal Maiden cleaned up from long range by the Visage using Soul Assumption. 7-7, and it looks like they still don't have to abandon this. The ulti from 1-2-1 really kind of whiffed. Didn't accomplish a whole lot. Icy did not commit to that fight either. In the meantime, Luo getting some much-needed space to farm while his team tries to hold this off. So win, lose, or draw, there is at least some kind of benefit involved. And Tongfu continuing to hang around. Looks like they just want Zoe to go ahead and bang it down as much as he can. They are not ready to quite initiate. They are going to go ahead and TP out, though. So it looks like they're going to abandon the siege for now.
I think that was a very poor initiation by Johnny. Even though he got the Spike Carapace on the Primal Roar, it still wasn't the ideal target. If you looked at the Zoe's position, it was all the way over here, and he was able to Shikuchi back over here by the time the Impale hit. That's so far away from tower. Looking at the distance, it's like maybe 1,000 range. If they just initiate on Mu right here, it wouldn't have been in range of the sentry, although he doesn't know that there's a sentry there, but he has kind of expect that Tongfu has good support, so they are going to be able to sentry up. And if they just initiate on right here and burst him down, then that would be a lot better than all the way over here. Timbersaw can't get into range to burst him down, and you really have to kill him during the Impale. If you don't, it's a wasted ultimate, because then Nyx Assassin is out of position, Zoe is at full HP, and they don't have any spells left on the Nyx Assassin.
Speaking of the Nyx Assassin, something I'm interested to see is what item choice he's going to go with. He's got 1,700 gold in the bank. A Blink Dagger, of course, would make a ton of sense, but they might want to go ahead and go for just a flat-out damage build, a Dagon. Not something I think is completely off the table either, as active as he has been and as active as they want to be. And very often, you'll see Nyx Assassins kind of sit back, wait for a Force Staff or a Blink Dagger when they're in the support position, but usually want to get a little bit more out of them when you dedicate that solo mid to them, like we saw.
3 heroes smoked right now. I personally would prefer the Force Staff build on him. I think it's very good versus Lifestealer, very good versus Beastmaster 2, in case somebody gets roared. I think they need to be able to survive the fights. They need to be able to survive the Infest Kings. They need to be able to survive during Primal Roar, the initial burst from Visage with the double Familiar Sounds. And if they can get past that and draw on the fight, Timbersaw will do more and more damage. And if Spectre lives, he'll do more and more damage too as heroes start to die and Desolate does more damage. So I think that they just need to focus on survivability. If they can get a burst down, that's great. But the problem is they have the Nyx with time lapse in case you don't execute your burst properly, like we saw on top. They have the null field on Rubik, they have the Gravekeeper's cloak, so Dagon won't be able to do that much, especially versus the Rage Lifestealer.
Let's see, speaking of the LS, split pushing top a little bit. We're seeing more movement now towards mid. Both teams just kind of playing a positioning battle. There's always going to be a weak spot or two in XTT. Now with the tower down below 500 HP, looks like he does want to try and force something to happen. In fact, he's going to bring his whole team with him. Mu, ZSMJ, and San Sheng both moving through past the Radiant Side Secret Shop just to go ahead and secure this tower. And Rattlesnake kind of flirting with the idea of going down that path. They'll be spotted if they do. Doesn't look like they're going to contest it, though, as the Visage Familiars push quite quickly.
The thing about XTT is he's not actually one of the top tier Lifestealers, because if he was, then he would be able to rage in between the Vendetta and the Impale gank. We see a lot of Nyx Assassins not even take that chance with the Vendetta, and they don't want him to be able to rage dodge the Impale. But he's not as quick as on his fingers as we've seen a lot of Lifestealers, and because of that, he has 3 deaths. He's 2, 3, and 1. But if he's very, very fast, he can just rage TP, and then that's the end of the gank, or just rage infest and buy a lot more time for his team. But the time he died on bottom and a couple of other times, he just has not been super quick with that rage. It's instant cast, and there's a brief cast animation with Nyx Assassin, especially if he Vendettas first or pops out of Vendetta.
Taking a look at the net worth tab, we can see the game very much in Tongfu's favor, at least according to the gold. We'll take a look at the gold graph as well. But the top 3 farmers on the board, the 3 you don't really want near the top. The Weaver off to a great start, Lifestealer a little bit behind him, and even the Beastmaster coming out of that mid position. Well on his way to maintaining his relevancy. That mech is done now. He has the recipe as well as the buckler and the headdress in his inventory. So a big team fight item about to be completed on Tongfu, and already they're beginning to show us they have no problem trying to force Luo on that Spectre to come to fights before she's ready. Drums and phase, all that's done. A little bit more survivable now, of course, but the armlet now done on the Lifestealer as well, so his damage output going to be much, much higher. Combine that with the mech, and this is going to be a very troublesome time for Rattlesnake. They need to hold the line or this game could get away from them very quickly.
Towers is going to fall too. It's at 80 HP right now, no glyph up. Are they going to be able to get it with that?
Nope. Look like they wanted to take a shot at it with the Visage Familiars. Will be the Blink Dagger build. So.
I don't think that they can defend. They can defend this tower. They just let 2 towers fall in quick succession without actually posting up any sort of good defense. And now that this has happened, they're just going to take the T1 on bottom, and then I think they can just control their jungle, limit Spectre's farm, and like Lifestealer has 3 deaths, but he's still a whopping 1,000 gold ahead of the Lifestealer. And Zoe also has 1 death, but he is just severely out-farming everybody too. So looks like Rattlesnake is going to try and defend this tower. Can they hold it though? I'm very, very skeptical. I don't think Blink is actually that crucial at this point in time, because they're mostly going to be diving under the tower, so he can just impale through Vendetta. But let's see if they can mount a defense. This is a very, very crucial fight for Rattlesnake. If they lose this, they lose control of their jungle. Spectre gets under farm, and they very well could lose the game. But excuse me, go ahead.
Looks like Tongfu is going to go ahead and back off. Not feeling like this is the time to go. Icy did finish his mechanism, so at least even on that front, but took a brief glance at the gold graph as we were moving towards that fight. In excess of 5,000 already advantage. The advantage of Tongfu, the experience, not quite as out of control, just at 2,000, but still quite notable for a sub-20-minute game. Luo, 1,400 gold in the bank, and now with the whole team behind him, looks like they're going to try to force Tongfu into the defensive position. They have 3 already there. That's going to be Mu, San Sheng, as well as the Rubik. And a TP will come in, so we'll see how much they want to dedicate to this. Rattlesnake is in this weird position where I feel like they drafted a team that wants to fight, but now they're in a position where it's tough to fight. If
they lose this fight though, or if they like lose one hero, they'll probably lose more because Mu has a haste and can just catch people out very, very easily. Zoe is pressuring top in the meantime. I think Rattlesnake just has to let this push up. But the problem is if someone TPs that's not Spectre, they can't be back to defend this bottom. So I think they need to TP with Spectre, just let him farm up, and then if they want to fight on bottom, then they just haunt him back.
Luo does go ahead and head back. And as you mentioned, the global presence of Haunt, certainly quite nice. So taking a little bit of harassment in the meantime. Both teams still flirting around this potential battleground of bottom lane. The tier 1 still standing on both sides. There's going to be another TP. It looks like they thought about it, thought better of it. That's why the Visage Familiars found Johnny as he was trying to TP away. Shows off his Blink Dagger. The Roar does go off. There's the Axes to follow it up. Mech's going to be popped to try and buy some time. Chakra slows him down. Great Impale. Caught a bunch. There's the ulti as well from Elder Titan. The Earth Splitter doing its job. And the Haunt back from Luo, allowing him to do a lot of damage. XTT trying to run, caught by the Chakram. Armlet toggle, not nearly enough to keep him alive. Big reaction coming out of Rattlesnake. And really, so much of that can be attributed to the just well-aimed and well-wrought play. That Impale was great, but more importantly, that Earth Splitter coming out of 1-2-1 really turned that around and allowed them to pursue it out and get that extra kill.
Yeah, I was really surprised that he got his Blink Dagger. When I saw him over here trapped with the Familiars, I thought he was for sure dead. But luckily, Zoe didn't have a TP in his inventory either. So they were fighting 4-on-5 the whole time, and that's not what you want to be doing versus Spectre. You can't let them get free kills like that. And the mech also came into play too. Timbersaw meched up the Nyx Assassin so that he could get his Impale off right before he died. And he just bought his Blink Dagger, so not a big loss for him in terms of gold value. Mu will pick up in Visrune. His haste rune ran out too, so it was like a good time if they can isolate the Nyx Assassin. But with a Blink Dagger, him being roared out here right next to the tower and very close to his teammates so that they can help him out and get rebuttal kills, very, very important positioning.
9-8 following that engagement. The gold graph, though, continues to remain heavily in favor of Tongfu. Experience hovering right around the same area as well, but when we take a look at the net worth, we can see Spectre has fought her way back near the top. So even though Rattlesnake is showing a little bit of trouble.
They can do Roshan right now if they wanted to.
We're going to see perhaps gank attempt. Looks like they thought about it. Sag was there. But with the Spectre beginning to make up some ground, even though they are under assault, they're really dealing with it quite well. And Spectre is going to become a much bigger factor sooner rather than later.
I'm not sure if he's going to survive this gank, though. There is an Invis Beastmaster with a haste in his bottle, with a Lifestealer inside of him, and a mech. I think that may very well be the death of Luo. Luo was sitting at almost 3,000 gold, though, so even though he's only died once, he's still farming quite well. Looks like Rattlesnake will just die on, or we'll just kill this tower on bottom of the courier sniped by Johnny coming out over here.
So I'm moving through the enemy jungle, manages to find himself nice little prize. The rest of Rattlesnake going to go ahead and collapse on the top tier 1 as well. Looks like their Tongfu might want to go ahead and push through. We can see Mu with the passenger, the Invis rune that will be expiring momentarily, as well as that mechanism. I mean, it is really, you cannot overestimate just how potent this combination of Beastmaster, Lifestealer with the mech, with the armlet, so on and so forth. That is a combo that in the right situations can just flat blow up 2 or 3 targets at any given moment.
It looks like Joe has already completed his Linkens. All he wants to do is just play a split push game. And now that he has the Linkens, he's nigh impervious to the Nyx Assassin ganks because he has to mana burn him and then impale him if he wants to be able to lock Zoe down. And that is very, very unlikely to happen. We saw Zoe already Shikuchi away after the Vendetta hit on this T1 fight. So I don't think he has as slow reaction as XTT on the Lifestealer.
Speaking of Joe, it's going to be caught out. Now there's the Earth Splitter, but time-lapsed away from. Poor Centaur, the one to eat the majority of that damage. They are beginning to stick together much, much more. And Rattlesnake really understanding that at this point, very crucial time. Again, the Spectre has fought her way back to relevancy. The farm the leaderboard in terms of pure net worth, not nearly as lopsided as it once was. This game is beginning to stabilize for them. We're actually going to see Weaver find himself a kill on the Crystal Maiden that time. But nonetheless...
Crystal Maiden disconnected.
Yep, that would be why.
Oh, it looks like they all disconnected. I think, yeah. It's a good time to pause the game. It doesn't look like any of them are moving. Yep. 5-man disconnect. Very unfortunate, but it's just a Crystal Maiden kill. Not a very big deal. Spectre is probably going for Radiance, considering he saved up 3,800 gold. I think this is the right build, considering how passive the game has been for like the past 5 or 10 minutes. It's mostly just been Tongfu taking on towers without Rattlesnake really contesting anything. So I think it's good. They need some late game presence, especially since it very well looks like it's going to get past 35-40 minutes.
5,000 gold remains the advantage going in the direction of Tongfu. Really, and again, I think that's a win for Rattlesnake. Tongfu came out, shut down the Spectre, so on and so forth, but they've actually started to turn that graph a little bit upside down, get the line moving in their direction, despite being under a lot of pressure from a split push-oriented kind of a team with the Weaver and the gank potential of a Lifestealer with that Beastmaster, and they really have just done a fairly decent job of keeping this game in range. It's there's an old saying in American football, sometimes you don't always have to go for first down on second down. If you can just get it to third and reasonable, usually you're going to be in good shape. And that's kind of how I feel like Rattlesnake's done this. They've gotten to mid-game and reasonable right now.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. The problem is they've lost top T1, mid T1, bottom T1. We just saw Weaver completely just mess around with the two supports in their jungle. So the jungle is not completely safe for Rattlesnake, and they're very well set up to do Roshan right now. And can Rattlesnake really contest in that Roshan pit? I don't think so. They don't really have a good way to get vision of it besides spirits. Ancestral Spirit from Elder Titan, but the damage output from Tongfu is pretty significant, and I think the Weaver is just going to be extremely difficult to kill. They don't really have good lockdown for him, especially considering he has a Lincoln Sphere and Strength Treads.
We can see the Lifestealers picked himself up an Ogre Club. We'll see what he wants to do with that. Could potentially be on his way to an SMY, one would imagine. But in the meantime, Rattlesnake continues to just kind of play this game out. And it looks like we've got at least 3/5 of Rattlesnake reconnected now. But by the way, I've been plugging the website. Just got word from my producer. The website is officially up and fully functional. D2L.gg. You can check out the awesome VOD system. Check out all of our up-to-date standings, of course, and all that fun stuff. Again, pop on over to D2L.gg. I knew we were trying to get the functionality fully lined down and ready to go tonight. Wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do so, but we have. And, everything. You can take a look at the East, the West, whichever side you're interested in. If you're interested in both, go back and forth. Again, our reworked VOD system, all the information you can want about the teams and the players, so on and so forth, again, at D2L.gg. And since I'm plugging the D2L's website, Merlini, plug yourself, brother. Where can they find out more about you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Merlini Dota. I stream every day that I am not casting with the pleasant voice that is ASC. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube /Merlini Dota. I actually released one of my YouTube videos today, my mailbag series. And how about yourself, ASC?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at AC. Just a simple guy. Keep it simple. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and everywhere else under ACTV as well. And you guys really do need to check out Merlini. If you haven't watched his stuff, especially if you're a newer player, doesn't get a whole lot better if you're looking to expand your knowledge of Dota. Hell, I learn a lot every time I cast with him. So if you're new to Dota, make sure you bookmark every one of his websites and check in as often as you possibly can. The guy works his tail off and, as you said, pretty much always streaming one way or the other and just teaching all the noobs, all of us noobs, I should say. I should put myself in that category. And teaching us to be better at Dota. We have yet another disconnect. And the thing is, earlier tonight it was Tongfu that we couldn't keep in the game. Now seems like the issue is spread. Rattlesnake, the one who can't seem to keep 5 together.
The contagion is spreading. Sounds like something Necrolate would say.
Oh, man.
It looks like Rubik has Ghost Scepter, so he's pretty farmed too. I don't think he's going to be very vulnerable to Spectre's ultimate later game. Like Spectre with his Haunt and a Max Desolate as well as Radiance can just flat out take supports down to 20%. I think it's a very good idea by ZSMJ to pick up a Ghost Scepter. On the flip side, we see Visage going with a point booster, but I don't think he's going to have Scepter at any reasonable timing. I think it would have been a smart choice for him to pick up a Ghost Scepter too.
24 minutes in, still trying to make sure we have a full house. The Elder Titan currently no longer with us. It's 1-2-1. And 1-2-1's had an up and down game, I think. He hit a couple of good Earth Splitters, but at the same time has been bullied around a bit. 9-9, though. So a very close game. And, I mean, like you said, this has every look of a game that's going to go relatively late. It's certainly that's going to favor Rattlesnake. The lifestealer, not the biggest problem in the world for her. I mean, obviously the split push, the gank potential that we've talked so much about is there. But if Rattlesnake can stabilize, I feel like they could very easily make this game a lot closer than it would seem. And again, they're about as far behind now as they have been all game long. That goal graph did start to turn downwards almost immediately from the beginning, but finally beginning to put together a positive run here. Now, if you're in Rattlesnake's shoes, Merlini, I mean, what's your game plan? Right now, they're beginning to play a little 4 Protect 1. We see them spending a lot of time safeguarding any nice farm zone for the Spectre. Is that something you think we can expect to see? Or you think maybe they're going to try to get back to their roots with that Nyx Assassin they sent mid, the Timbersaw, his activity and the haunt potential out of the Spectre? You think they're going to play more passive or maybe try to get out and try to free the map up with kills?
I think what they should do, it depends on what Tongfu does. I think if they continue with the split push, we saw Zoe just constantly pressure the left side over here all the time. We just saw him down here, and even right now, he's like very close to the jungle. If he splits up from his team, I think they can definitely take on a 4-on-5. Nyx Assassin has to be very proactive with his Vendetta, with his Blink. Just Blink initiate on them and then make them fight 4-on-5. The last fight that Rattlesnake won was down here when they tried to initiate on the Nyx Assassin, and that was without Zoe on the life, without Zoe there. So I don't really think they can kill Zoe without expending too many resources, and even then, it's not a 100% prospect. So I think if they split push, they don't punish him by fighting the Weaver. I think they punish him by taking him 4-on-5 and killing the Lifestealer over and over, so that they don't really have to worry about him in the later game. He'll just die and be controlled naturally. The problem is if they 5-on-5 right now, I think that Lifestealer and Weaver are going to be too much to handle for them. They don't really have enough lockdown and damage from both of them. So if Tongfu 5-on-5s, they need to defend and just be really annoying with the Spirit, with the Chakram, and just delay the push as much as possible while Spectre split pushes and then haunts. But if they run around as 4 and Zoe pushes, then they just immediately take the fight on 4, repel them, and then just decide on what Tongfu does from there. And then in the meanwhile, Spectre should always be farming.
And we can see finally we're back ready to go, and hopefully this will be the last of our long pauses. Nonetheless, we'll find out what they're going to be up to. Johnny currently undercover of Vendetta, has about half time left on it. Blink Dagger in his inventory. Has been there for quite some time, and really anxious to see just the way Rattlesnake wants to play this out. I mean, as you had mentioned, the fact that they've lost so much map control, having lost so many towers, puts them in a bit more of a defensive position as well, and it can only get worse. I mean, if Tongfu decides to make a concerted effort to shut down this jungle and just apply pressure as 5, the Spectre, as close as she is to her Radiance, she will be doing more single-target damage coming out very soon when she does get her Relic. But she is very close to the Radiance now. But until that Radiance is up, don't really think Rattlesnake's going to be all that keen on 5-on-5s unless they're able to start things off with a good initiation onto a support, a nice pick-off involving the burst potential of the Nyx Assassin with the Elder Titan. And really, Tongfu so far has really done a decent job of not giving them that many openings. We are going to go ahead and see Johnny poke his nose around. Roche Pit going to be the site of what could be our next engagement. Joe, though, has a double damage. This Roche is going to drop fast, and if we're going to see Rattlesnake do anything about it, they better do it quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah, it looks like the Roshian's already at 3,500 HP. I don't think they can do anything about it. They're just hanging around the pit, like hoping something miraculous will happen, but there's really nothing that they can do. The lucky pickup of the DD by the Weaver will just seal the fate of Roshian. 24-42, Weaver will get the Aegis of the Mortal. So I talked a little bit about Rattlesnake's game plan, but what Tongfu needs to do, I think they can just get a gem on the Beastmaster and or a Blink. Preferably both, and one of the supports can buy the gem, probably Visage, since he has 800 gold right now, and they can just limit the Nyx Assassin's vision. If they don't have any vision of the map and they're constantly scared of Tongfu and they never know where they are, I think they just double smoked actually. They can either pick up the Spectre, they can pick up the Nyx Assassin, and force Rattlesnake to be as 5 so that Spectre can't outfarm them. And if they can just limit Spectre's farm, they win the game, because Lifestealer and Weaver are just better at this stage of the game, and although Lifestealer's farm is hindered a little bit, he's still doing pretty well, and I think both of them can take down a Spectre who is a little bit under farm compared to Zoe.
Joe leading the way with the split push, the rest of his team moving into the Radiant side jungle, just trying to again remove that source of golden experience. Their courier does respond at just the right moment, so there's that gem you were talking about being picked up by Visage. Going to look to put Rattlesnake in the dark and look to probably play some five-man Dota, maybe let Joe bait something out. In the meantime, Beastmaster has denied that middle tower, so a little bit of extra gold not going their way. Meantime, Joe is spotted by a sentry.
Blink stun?
Very nice impale, caught too. Doesn't look like they want to follow it up. Joe's going to go ahead and time-lapse back out of it. But again, with the sentry there, they wanted to engage, they could have, but you can just see the fear already. Rattlesnake did not commit to killing those 2 heroes, even though they had 4, just because they have no idea what's waiting for them in the jungle.
There's the Radiance, 1365 gold on Spectre. Here it goes. If they win this fight, the whole game's blown wide open. Tongfu has had a pretty significant lead up until this point, but if they lose this fight right here, and if Zoe probably won't die twice, but if everyone else dies on Tongfu, then I think that Rattlesnake has the advantage at this point. So very, very crucial push by Tongfu. Somewhat risky because they could potentially lose a gem, and gem's not very useful right now because they're just pushing S5. The sentries could accomplish the same thing, but let's see if they do defend it. I think it's a little bit too risky for Rattlesnake because if they lose this fight, they also lose the T3.
Radiant's bottom tower has
Tier 2 bottom does end up dropping. Very nice zoning there from the Visage, using his familiars to zone out and force that retreat, at least in some way. Managed to stun the Timber Saw, and he had the Timber Chain away. But with the last of the safe lane tower there, that's really where things are going to be problematic. They did a great job of keeping that tower up and allowing Luo time to get up the Radiance beforehand. But as you said, really, this next fight's going to be pretty make or break, no matter where it happens. Rattlesnake cannot afford to lose any more battles with this little map control to go. And as you said, if they had lost that fight down there, the Tier 3 wide open. That Aegis still very much active and still has a lot of time on it for Joe. So if he wants to get out and get moving, they're going to be able to push and really take some chances here without a whole lot of risk. Deso even done on the Weaver now. So the damage output going to be through the roof for our 2 physical DPSs, the Weaver and the Lifesteal.
He's going to become a big problem now, too. I'm surprised that there isn't a medallion up on any of the supports on Tongfu. They have a lot of physical damage, pretty much all physical damage, which leads to the Timber Saw getting Ghost Scepter, but they need a medallion so they can just burst down the Spectre very, very quickly during Aurora. I don't think they can do so right now, but yes, they looks like they're trying to switch towers right now, but I think Tongfu can just pressure this T3, so it's going to be very hard pressed for Rattlesnake to find even this T2.
Yeah, this isn't a good trade at all for Rattlesnake.
They have to back.
Yeah, this makes the push power coming out of Tongfu is just huge, especially with the Beastmaster aura. They get a free Tier 3. They might commit to go ahead and bring down the Rax. Again, Joe has his Aegis still active, has the Deso, and we can see that Rax melting down. They can't even find a way to engage, just throwing the Chakram out. That's going to be a free melee Rax brought down for next to no cost. Luo getting a little bit of farm in the meantime, but certainly not going to justify that. And Tongfu takes a big step forward. 18 kills in a 28-minute game, but we do see our first Rax drop.
That was a big lapse in judgment by Rattlesnake. They tried to pressure a T2, but you can't do that when Tongfu's pressuring your T3. They could have had Timber Saw stay behind. They could have had a Elder Titan stay behind. They both have pretty long-range spells. Chakram, I think, has 2,000 range maximum that it'll come back to you if you're out of 2,000 range, and Spirit has 1,200 cast range as well as being able to move it even closer to your opponent. So I think they could have just done a very long range defense, especially with no Blink Dagger on the Beastmaster. They're not really that scared of an Initiate, so I think they totally misplayed that. Just lost a Rax for absolutely nothing. I mean, they got like a little bit of farm on Spectre, but losing a Rax, two Raxes and a T3 for that, that's not a good trade. And with Weaver just being super stacked right now, it looks like Aegis is going to be expired at 1 minute, so they'll probably get this T1 and back. But after that, they can just get an next Roshan and just continue the same thing. And Spectre's farming pretty fast after his Radiance, but still not even coming close to catching up to Zoe.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. I mean, Joe's just reached that point on a Weaver where he just becomes almost impossible to deal with. He's super survivable, has the Lincoln Sphere, and that's regardless of the Aegis. He can just burst down any target so quickly that the supports can't buy the time that Spectre needs. Spectre, with the Radiance and just by the function of how dispersion tends to work, wants these battles to be a little drawn out. I mean, obviously she can burst someone down, that's great, but she needs time. And that's just not something Tongfu's going to permit. Whenever you have a Lifestealer now with his S and Y and an armlet, he's in great shape as we arc through the mid-game. But more importantly, the armor reduction coming off of the Deso on the Weaver, his innate survivability, and just the pure damage output, hitting for almost 200 damage a shot before armor reduction. It's just not going to be a game where really any of the supports on the side of Rattlesnake can expect to survive for long.
Spectre just needs too many items at this point. He needs a heart so he won't die to Weaver. He needs a butterfly though, because Weaver has a lot of physical damage as well as Lifestealer, but that won't help with Disperse at all. He needs Mantis so he can do more damage, but I just don't see those items coming up online anytime soon. And even if it does, like Lifesteal will have a Abyssal if he wants to. By then, Zoe will have an MKB to counter his butterflies. So it's just a very difficult life for Luo. They don't have anyone that can. Oh, are they going to be able to kill him right now, though?
And yeah, they are.
He did not have his Aegis. That was a. I mean, Zoe has been pretty much doing that all game, but he just dropped so easily right there. My goodness, I didn't expect him to just give a free kill like that.
Yeah, didn't even get his time lapse off. So 3,200 gold in his bank even after the death, though. So he's certainly quite stacked, as you had mentioned. His net worth quite through the roof. The pure net worth total with the death of those towers and just how much gold Tongfu has been able to strangle out of the income of Rattlesnake. Now up into the 5-digit territory. They're at 10,000 gold advantage. The experience probably not that different, and yeah, we can see difference. And yeah, about 4,000 experience. So level's not really the problem, but just anemia at this point. Rattlesnake is just hemorrhaging gold and hemorrhaging map control, and having lost that Rax, they're now hemorrhaging it even more.
I think that Zoe needs a little bit more time to adjust to this team. I think he's one of the most recent additions, having departed from IG as their main carry. And this is certainly not the role that he usually plays. I think he usually plays like the triple lane farmer, such as anti-mage, etc. So like you can tell just from his gameplay that he hasn't really done that much with his team. He was solo, he got solo kill on top, he was split pushing the majority of the time, and the only time that he was really with his team was when they were doing Roshan and when they took the Rax in middle. But aside from that, he hasn't been able to like put that much pressure or do that much with his significant net worth lead right now.
Tongfu moving through the Roche pit. Looks like they might want to smoke. If nothing else, they're going to go try to pick a fight somewhere. So 3,200 gold, 2 minutes until Roshan. And a regen room picked up by Moo in the meantime. They are going to go ahead and move back into the Radiant side jungle. Again, just denying these creeps, denying any kind of comfort to Rattlesnake, forcing them to 5-man as well. And you know, this is one of those comfortable situations whenever you have a team that you know has superior 5-man potential, at least at this stage of the game. When you group together to 5, you're losing something, but so is the other team. And if they're already behind, just makes it that much more difficult for one or even a group of heroes to play catch-up. So we'll be spotted out. There's the time lapse, and XTT wants to engage. There's the roar onto Luo from behind. Here comes the nicer splitter. Caught a couple. Mech keeps him alive momentarily, however. The battle continues to rage, and Spectre's burn damage is there. There's an infest from XTT, but he's cleaned up on the fly. Rubik next to drop, and a huge win going the way of Rattlesnake. We saw the buyback there to make that necessary, so it came at a cost. But getting the Spectre back into the fight, very well played, very nice kill on the Lifestealer, by the way. That was one of those sick kills where he kind of just got picked off on the fly. Nonetheless, Rattlesnake notching a big kill just before Roshan. Rosh going to be up in about 60 seconds, so Tongfu will be able to challenge.
That was a pretty good fight for Rattlesnake because Tongfu was all clumped up right here. That leads them to a nice Earth Splitter in this trajectory, lines up for Impale Suns, although Nyx got picked off at the start, and huge amounts of burst from Timber Saw, as well as Crystal Maiden even. So I think that Tongfu could have won a 5-on-5 had they had the space to spread out and just swarm Rattlesnake, but yeah, fighting right here was not the ideal place to fight, and they suffered very heavily for that. Weaver looks like he has his BKB right now. I think he was the sole survivor of that fight.
Yep.
It did cost Spectre a buyback, but he had around like 300 gold, I think, before that fight. He bought his ultimate orb, so he used most of his unreliable gold and then bought back and got a lot of kills. So I think all in all, it was still a very good trade for them. Spectre will have his Manta next, and looks like second Roshan will be going down. This one doesn't have a cheese yet. If they did have a cheese, I think they would pressure a Rax, but if it doesn't, Tongfu is still in a very precarious position right now. We just saw how convincingly Rattlesnake won that fight with a buyback. So I think Rattlesnake just needs to delay a little bit, farm up the Manta, farm up another buyback, and just defend until that time. I think if Tongfu is all the way out into the opponent's space, they can't really recover from killing Spectre twice.
Yeah, we'll see how much Tongfu wants to dedicate to this, grabbing up the Aegis and putting it back onto the Weaver once again. No surprise, Zoe having picked up just one shot bought a BKB after banking back nearly 4,000 gold to afford it. XTT adding to his inventory as well. The Basher will be done momentarily, only a few hundred gold separating him from that item. Beastmaster has picked up that Scepter to go in his inventory, so he's going to have the Roar on call and even more effective as we move into the late stages. Manta style done on Spectre now, so she's continuing to fill out her inventory as well. One just can't help but wonder, is it too little too late? That was a great fight that they took. Did require a buyback, but as you said, didn't really slow Spectre down that much. But Tongfu in such a good position now with the survivability of Zhou being through the roof. Tongfu really just is in a position where they can set the pace of this game for the next 20 minutes.
The Spectre Bomb is just waiting to explode, though. I mean, he doesn't have as much damage as Zoe right now, but I mean, and he's 3,000 gold behind the items, but I think he has a lot more impact in team fights because Weaver, to be honest, is just not that great of a team fight hero. And I'm a little bit scared for you. And they have the Aegis right now, but you don't see them making a push for the racks. They don't feel that confident anymore. And I'm also very surprised that nobody on Tongfu has picked up a Drums of Endurance. I think that Lifestealer should have picked it up a very, very long time ago. Perhaps just sack his magic stick for it. The attack speed and boost speed certainly helps, especially with an attack speed stacking with Inner Beast. And we see Spectre still having 3 jump charges too. Usually that thing is just used up in like 5 minutes time as soon as you get it, just because as Spectre you're under so much pressure to just survive until post 40 minutes, and it is going to get there.
We got a smoke up from Tongfu. They're going to move through. Zhou uses the BKB. There's going to be the roar on the Luo. Luo caught in the back, will be cleaned up. Chakram's there as his Earth Splitter, but it doesn't matter. Johnny caught out, cleaned up. Visage working with the team to help do the damage from distance, and that is absolutely disastrous. Just caught way out of position. Immaculately timed smoke coming out of Tongfu. Not content to sit back and let the Spectre get further and further along. And Spectre, of course, having spent the buyback. No such luxury this time around. Earth Splitter's been spent 1-2-1, uses the Ghost Scepter, but it's not going to matter. And that's going to be your GG. A game that really Rattlesnake hung around in quite well for a very long time. And Tongfu, and this just goes to show you get to this stage of the game, you get heroes that are have this much damage potential. You can't afford to make a mistake even for a moment. You can't afford to have your carry caught out. Wonderful, truly wonderful timing on that smoke coming out from Tongfu.
Yep, I thought it was going to get past 40 minutes, but it does not look like it. I think Spectre shouldn't have been with this team there. It's susceptible for a CM who actually died first to be down for a fight because she doesn't actually contribute that much. But for your Spectre to die like that is completely unacceptable. They have to just, if you see a lot of the better carry players, they'll just like farm the side lanes and then just use Manta Illusions to push and then just constantly dagger into the trees and TP if they think the enemy's around. But when the enemy's missing, when they have the Aegis, they're just looking for a pick off and then a... oh, actually, they're mounting a decent defense.
Luo, though, now going to be engaged upon. Luo came back in, haunted in. Looks like they will go ahead and withdraw. 2 racks down, though. I think the deficit going to be a bit too large. Nice stuns coming out from the Visage Familiars. Slowed down the entire team that time. They're not going to give up the Ghost, though, as Icy. Temper changes his ways. Zoe, though, turns with the BKB popped. Says, that's fine. I'm willing to go toe-to-toe. Rubik has picked up a Blink Dagger in the meantime. Spectral Dagger will connect, but XTT happy to go ahead and rage and TP home. And at this point, though, this is desperation time for Rattlesnake. 2 sets of racks down. This is not a game that they're going to win unless they go and make something happen right now. The gold deficit will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. The net worth already featuring 3 of the top 4 farmers on the side, coming from the side of Tongfu. And the Weaver, basically Weaver's a full big item ahead of Luo at this point.
He has 5,000 gold right now. I think they could have picked up the gem and maybe killed Zoe right then, but it's a long shot for Rattlesnake to win right now. He does not have gold for buyback because if he dies, he will be below that 1,234 gold mark. And, I mean, they could just focus Luo, and they don't really have a solution. They don't really have any counter-initiate through BKB, which is one of the problems with Rattlesnake's lineup. What do they do versus BKB? Half the damage from Earth Splitter goes through. Aside from that, not really anything.
We can see them moving back into the jungle. And a lot of mobility items being picked up. Rubik picked up a Blink Dagger to go with his Force Staff and his Ghost Scepter. We saw the Beastmaster just pick up a Force Staff of his own. So a lot of ways to get in and out of fights. And Tongfu going to go ahead and play this patiently. At this point, 2 racks down. Much of Rattlesnake relegated to simply sitting in the shadow of their ancient to try and keep the Mega Creeps at bay. Luo, though, trying to add to his inventory. 1,700 gold, has a Radiance, and that Manta, as we talked about, at this point, just needs to tank himself up. Might be a different story if he's able to get himself a heart or something like that, but that's quite a long, forlorn hope away.
Yeah, and the problem is if he gets heart, lifesteal, which is lifesteal. If he gets butterfly, he doesn't have that much HP to disperse. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation with him. Roshan will respond to 4 half minutes time. I'm not sure if Tongfu is going to wait that long. I think they have enough of a lead right now to just straight up end the game, whether it's just straight throwing it or taking out bottom because there's no T3 tower there anymore. But looks like they're quite content to wait a little bit. Let's check what Zoe is going to go next. There is a Crystallis, so he can buy his Daedalus. He has enough money for it, but it looks like he wants to save for buyback with immediate time lapse back into the fight. I'm surprised that Beastmaster picked up a Blink or a 4-step instead of a Blink Dagger. I think they just need like any picks they can get right now. Any death on Rattlesnake is just going to be huge, and looks like Luo may be the target of choice.
Abyssal done on XTT, so Spectre's life getting considerably harder. A lot of
Next Assassin has a gem. This could be very dangerous for Mu. He thinks he's safe with the invis.
A lot of killing potential on both sides. You can see Mu wisely withdraws. The rest of Rattlesnake is ahead. Zoe is going to go for it. There's the telekinesis. Luo will be force staffed away, but they're going to go ahead and chase this out. Mech's there. Zoe's actually going to get blown up. Earth Splitter on the mark, and the stomp to slow things down as well. There's the immediate time lapse back after the buyback. Zoe ready to continue the fight. There's the soul assumption. In the meantime, Johnny trying to pursue out the Rubik will not find him. Single target DPS, magic and physical too high. Mu, though, will be cleaned up. Now the Haunt comes out. XTT forced to pull back. Joe caught out behind enemy lines. Johnny's right there, force staff, and they will be able to kill him.
Wow.
So it took a buyback on the side of Spectre, but the Weaver also bought back. And even against all odds, Rattlesnake unwilling to let this fight go, or unwilling to let this game go, holding in just long enough, and now ready to put together a death charge down mid. They don't have anyone back to deal with Ancients, and that's a big old wave of Ancients, or excuse me, big old wave of Mega Creeps heading for the Ancient.
If Roshan were up right now, I would say that Rattlesnake can just take it, give the Aegis and the cheese to Spectre, and just win the game from there. With 3 lives, we see how much damage he's done with 2 lives, and imagine with 3, oh my goodness. But, I mean, Zoe just has not been playing very well. He died very early without using his time lapse. He bought back, and then he died again with his time lapse on cooldown. So he has 19,000 net worth, more than anybody else in the game, but just still not making the same impact that Luo has.
Speaking of Luo, very cute Visage familiar play there. Was trying to bring down the Naked Rax at bottom and did a little bit of damage and then got the stuns off with the familiars before Luo could kill them. However, Johnny quite happy to take a little free gold for his trouble. Nonetheless, Rattlesnake continues to extend this game, and Tongfu's going to be scratching their head a little bit. They've got the items, but they just can't seem to clean these fights up enough. I mean, having the Abyssal up on XTT especially, they've got so many ways to lock people down, and they just are unable. They have been unable to this point to really get the job done.
They need Masco Scepters. I think they should get one on the Beastmaster. They need one on the Visage, and just Masco Scepter during round 2, or even if he's just focusing you. Looks like they're just waiting for Roshan. About a minute and a half left. Mu has not been able to find like that many key ganks with Beastmaster. A lot of it has to do with his lack of mobility right now. No BOTs, no blink. And we only saw one really crucial one, which is right here where they took the mid and top racks. But, I mean, even with only 2 racks remaining and 1 T3, I'm surprised this game is that close. I think that Tongfu had like a very, very sizable advantage looking at the gold lead. It's still around 17,000, 18,000 mark. But this next Aegis and Cheese will probably decide the game.
Yep, Roche just about to respawn, less than 60 seconds now. And Rattlesnake desperately trying to get this top lane pushed down as well as mid. Just can't have creeps barreling down their Ancient while they try and take the most important fight of this game. Mu has a passenger and is going to go ahead hunting along with Zoe, who's moved his way into mid. Familiar is helping to give him a little bit of vision during the nighttime. Tongfu beginning to pull back again. We can see Visage does have his Scepter as well. And a lot of mobility and survivability items on both sides, really. So much of this is just going to come down to technical proficiency and who can get the most mileage out of those items.
Here we go with the next Roshan. It's going to respawn very, very soon. Zoe with his Desolator will be able to belt that very, very quickly. And let's check Spectre's buyback. No buyback for 3 minutes time. I think if they fight right here, they lose once they lose the game. But we will see how this fight turns out.
There's smoke. They're going to go ahead and take the old end around into
It's already dead.
Yeah, into the secret shop. And I guess they're going to try to hope they can catch them coming out. Sansheng is on the back end of this. There's going to be the Haunt. They're going to try to engage off of it. Sansheng in trouble. He was the big target. He was scythed and killed off. Now there's the Earth Splitter. Caught a couple. Zoe there, ready to re-engage. Johnny eating a lot of damage. Here comes 1-2-1. Ghost Sceptering away from the damage. Re-engagement. Zoe, though, just pegging away. Luo cleaned up. Too much damage coming out of that. Crystal Maiden's ulting just not going to be enough on its own as we see XTT get himself back in shape after the Aegis being popped. XTT eating his cheese. So a valiant effort, but in the end, just not enough. That's 67 seconds now. The Spectre is down as well, and really, I mean, Rattlesnake, I feel like their timing was a little bit off. The fight itself wasn't horrendous. It's just way too much in terms of damage output coming out of XTT and coming out of Zoe. They just blew the Spectre up, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, if they had done that inside the Roshan pit, the fight would have gone completely differently. It's not like they don't have spells that can give vision, too. They have Chakram, they have Elder Titan with the Spirit, and they have Crystal Maiden with the Nova, and they have Haunt, they have Dagger. They have so many things that they can just look inside the pit. I think if they had fought 10 seconds earlier, then maybe they could have stolen the Aegis and the Cheese, and looks like Luo, 1,200 gold right now, even if he dies right now, or even if he revives and his buyback is off cooldown, he doesn't have enough gold for buyback. Looks like it's going to be Mega Creeps in just about 5 seconds time, and that should be the end of this game.
Here you go. Last Rax falls. We can see a little bit of harassment continuing from Tongfu. Rattlesnake not quite content to call the game. Yep, there it is. Never mind. I was going to say not quite content to call the game over quite yet. But finally, after a... I mean, the game itself wasn't that long, only 47 minutes, give or take. But a lot of pauses, a lot of waiting time, and the Odyssey comes to a conclusion. And Rattlesnake, really, again, I feel like they did a great job of hanging on and extending this game as long as they did. Tongfu just got a lead and kept a lead the entire game. And as close as they got to coming back as Spectre began to fill out her inventory, just really didn't have the punching power. I don't feel like, and we talked about this coming in, Merlini, I don't feel like that lineup they had, which is kind of predicated on the idea of getting a lot done with the mid-mix assassin, roaming the Crystal Maiden, and so forth. Don't know that they got enough mileage out of those heroes.
I don't think so either. They got like a couple kills on start. I think Nyx Assassin did very well even after giving up First Blood, but if he didn't die and was able to keep up the pressure much earlier than Beastmaster, then I think the game would have been a lot different. Spectre would have gotten his items much more quickly, and Weaver would have been forced to join fights earlier instead of being able to constantly split push. But Zoe, all in all, even if he died a fair amount, he still farmed like an absolute beast, eclipsing Luo's net worth, and just having two carries compared to one, especially Lifestealer, who's able to just lock him down every time, just won the game for Tongfu.
Very well played game by Tongfu. They take a 1-0 lead over Rattlesnake in our opening best of 3 of the night. 46 minutes, 54 seconds, the official game time. The final kill score, 19-21. Again, sorry for the delays, guys, but hopefully both teams have all of their connection issues under control. We're going to find out if Rattlesnake can get the game plan under control and force a Game 3, or will it be another 2-0 blanket? You've seen a lot of that so far here early on in Eastern Divisional play. Going to look to add another if you're a Tongfu fan. Coming up next, Game 2 of this best of 3, Tongfu and Rattlesnake. Stick with us. We'll be right back.